What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to In My Lane TV. Back with a full recap. No trailer breakdown this time. We're doing a straight full recap. We're talking about The Woman in the Yard. This is produced by Blumhouse. I went to see this movie a couple nights ago, and I just want to say that I don't think it's nearly as bad as some of the reviews are saying it is. This film got like 45% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics, and I think it's matched by a 46% from general audiences. Yikes. But I'm saying, no way. That movie is not that bad. Now, I'm not saying it's great, but it's not that bad. I think it deserves a little bit. I personally would say it's at least like 60%, which is not great either. I know. But I want to talk about this film anyway, just for a couple reasons, because it wasn't what I expected. I'll just say that. This movie was not what I expected. Before I get into it, I want to say that there are massive spoilers ahead. Let me say it again. Massive spoilers. So if you haven't seen Woman in the Yard yet, and you want to go check it out, stop right now. Come back though. Come back. Go watch the movie for yourself. Come back. And then also make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be doing recaps, trailer breakdowns, a whole bunch of fun stuff. But if you don't care about spoilers, by all means stick around. But I want you, don't say I didn't warn you, because I'm talking about everything that's going on in this movie. Like I said, Woman in the Yard. I'm gonna say Woman in the House.
You big cold-blooded dummy.
Woman in the Yard, is produced by Blumhouse. Y'all know Blumhouse. A long list of horror films, some great, some not so great. Really, the only reason I went to go see this movie was because it's a horror movie and I just love horror. There was nobody in this film that's really gonna be a box office draw, right? You don't need that. It's horror. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of the horror genre, is that people go see horror films even if it's starring, nobodies. No disrespect to the cast here, because the actors I thought were really good in this. The only person I recognized was Russell Hornsby, and I know him from Grimm. If you know Grimm, you know Russell Hornsby, played detective in that show. Anyways, Woman in the Yard starts off with a woman waking up from a dream. Her husband is talking to her. The husband is played by Russell Hornsby. He did when the movie starts, obviously, because we have a woman who's just kind of like, sadly going through her phone. Her and her ex, I guess now deceased husband, had bought a farm, and you see her wearing a knee brace. So you find out that he died in a car crash. Right when the movie starts, obviously we kind of feel bad for the main character. She's a single mother now, raising two kids. And off the bat, you kind of get a sense that the kids don't really have a great relationship with their mother. Like they miss their dad. That's the kind of vibe that it puts off. And then right away, you pretty much get a sense of how badly she's struggling. The main character's name, played by Danielle. I forget the lead actress's last name, but her name is Danielle. She's playing a character called Ramona. And Ramona's struggling. She got a knee brace. She lost her husband in a car crash. And right off the bat, she just kind of seems like a mean mom that is having a hard time keeping her family together. Like I said, the kids clearly miss their dad. The power's cut off. They ain't got no electricity. They barely got food in the house. The dog, they got a dog named Sam, I think. The dog ain't even got no food. The kid goes to pour, food in a dog bowl. The dog got like 2 kibbles in there. So just everybody's struggling without the father. Eventually, out of nowhere, one of the kids looks through the window and they see, you guessed it, a woman in the yard. There's a woman dressed in all black. The kid's like, hey, mom, this kind of creepy. What are we going to do about this? And the mom is kind of, saying, I don't know. She goes out to have a conversation with this woman. And right away, it just gets creepy. She sees if she's lost. The woman is talking, I will say, in a very demonic voice. Like, obviously, this is like supernatural, but the mother, for whatever reason, continues to carry on a conversation with this woman. And the woman says something to the effect of, I know your husband's not home. Also, you called me. So right away, we kind of get a sense that in some kind of way, this woman in the yard and our lead actress, they're kind of like connected somehow. She's some kind of manifestation of some inner struggle that's going on with the mother that's in the house. That's how I kind of got that right away. Now, I will say, and this is no knock on the film, but I know a lot of people didn't like this film apparently. Some of it could be because it was one of those films that made you think. I don't know if this was what they call, elevated horror. It wasn't really that elevated, but I definitely will say it's a film that's good. Like, don't go see this movie if you think it's just gonna be some regular ghost flick. You have to put your thinking cap on for this one, because it's one of those things where you gotta like, okay, this means something, that means something. And I was not in that kind of mind frame. It was like, 9 o'clock at night. I just got off work. I was tired. I just wanted to, just scare me. Give me, even though I don't really get scared in horror movies, but I'm just there to be freaked out. I wasn't there to think. And this movie makes you think. And I also want to give some credit to the director. I believe I wasn't familiar with his work either. I think it's directed by a man named, I'm probably gonna butcher his name. I'm sorry, y'all, but Juame Colette, Spanish American director. He has some really cool visually. There was a lot of great shots in this. I will say sometimes it got on my nerves because he kind of like he shoots like at an angle. Like there's some times where you like got to do like this because of the way he's shooting, and he's holding on that frame for a while. So it personally just got on my nerves. But overall, this film was visually, that was great. It was creepy. Aesthetics were great. So I do want to give some credit to the director. But the woman goes back in the house. She gets mad at the kids because the kids are like, Mom, this woman's just standing there. Why don't we do something about it? And then I will say it's really hard for me to get into a film where I find the main characters unlikable. Like it was like 20, 25 minutes into the film. I just don't like this woman. She's constantly yelling at her kids. She's mean to, both of them. You kind of feel bad for her because she lost her husband. She's walking around in a knee brace. She's probably under a lot of stress, and you get that. But still, she's just seems like unnecessarily mean, and it's hard for me to get into a film where I feel like I can't stand the protagonist at all. And that's how this movie made me feel. The more the movie went on, I just didn't like her, especially when the teenage son is kind of like, why don't we go to a neighbor? Like, this woman's just there. We can't call the cops because you can't keep the power on. Let me just go to a neighbor. She's like, no, you're not going to drive. We're just going to wait here in the house. The woman will go away. You also get a sense that she knows what this woman is, or who she is, who or what it is. She has a sense of it. She's not telling the kids. They also allude, this is when I knew the woman outside and the mother in the house were like somehow connected, because she would have these like flashbacks, or not flashbacks, but like daydreams almost, where she's kind of like, you see her holding a knife when she's holding the baby girl, like she wants to harm her kids. So you kind of get a sense that this mom is having like depressing thoughts, mental illness, something like that, where she's just having a hard time and she just wants to unalive her children. That also made me not like her. Like, just everything in this movie made me not like the main character. No disrespect. Again, the actress was great. Thought the actress did a phenomenal job, as well as the kids. But the way this character was written, I just did not like her at all. So she's thinking about harming her kids, has something to do with the woman outside. And the woman starts getting closer and closer to the house. She starts off way across the street. Then she's really just in the yard, and she just sits there. You also get a sense, there's some really cool shots with the woman where she's kind of like, she can move without having to get off the chair. Like, she moves through shadows, you know what I'm saying? So like there's a dog, and again, spoilers, I don't think the dog makes it. He's like barking at her, and she like puts her in, but as her shadow grows, she can like touch you through her shadow. So Lil Sam, he goes by. But then also you think, did the mother do that? Because there's a scene where the mother goes out to check on the dog, and you don't know if the mother's really killing her or if this woman in the yard really exists. I mean, she exists because the kids can see her. Otherwise, I would think it's one of those movies. I'm like, oh, this is one of those movies where, what was that Halle Berry movie? There was a Halle Berry movie. Somebody help me out. There was a Halle Berry movie that came out just last year where, again, she was a single mother, and you're not sure if there's really a threat or if she's just hallucinating or making all this up. It's like Let Them Out or something like that. She chained her kids to the house, and they could only go so far in the woods. Somebody help me out. Drop a comment. Let me know what movie that is. This kind of gave me that kind of feel, but I knew it wasn't the same because the kids also could see her. So the mother's not hallucinating, but still, there's a connection between this person because, she's having violent thoughts of her harming her kids, and this ominous woman is outside dressed in all black. So there is a connection. So as the film progresses, I find the mother to continue to get even more unreasonable and unlikable. The son is arguing. He wants to get a gun. The dad, he knows, kept a gun in a safe. He wants to go find the gun and, kind of scare this woman. The mother says no. They kind of have a fight. He locks her in the room, goes outside, talks to the woman in the yard. So the teenage son now has a shotgun while the mother's locked. He's locked the mother in the bedroom. He goes outside, talks to the woman, says, we got a gun. He's ready to handle business. Get away from my house. You're trespassing, yada, yada. He's trying to be the man of the house. And the woman in the yard says, oh, by the way, your mother didn't tell you everything about the car crash with your dad, because the kids were always under the impression that the father was driving when he crashed. He died and the mom survived. But now when the son goes to talk to the mother, says, hey, this creepy woman dressed in all black told me that you're lying to me about, what happened to our dad. And this is where we find out, they do a flashback scene. And the mother and the father are on a date, and the mother is also unhappy on this date. Like, even when the husband was alive, she was unhappy because this farm that they bought, they apparently had agreed to buy the farm together, but now the wife is unhappy. She goes, "Okay, I don't want to be here anymore. We moved out here for you. I'm going to leave you and go back to the city." And again, this just made me not like her because it was just kind of like, okay, so, even when your husband was alive, you didn't appreciate him. You were ungrateful. He's working hard on this farm, and you agreed with him to buy this property. And now you're having buyer's remorse, and you're blaming him for, she says, "I feel lost. I don't have anybody out here." And the husband's like, but baby, we said we would do this together. And now you're saying you're going to leave me, yada, yada. They have a whole fight. Then she gets in the car. And while she's driving, she's like blacked out because she's angry. And somehow they get in a car crash and the husband died. So she also is responsible for the death of her own husband and, her children's father. So again, this is like the 8th reason I have not to like this woman at this point. And then I will say it was around this time where I was just kind of like, I don't know who wrote this movie, but I know it was written by a man. And I hate that I had that thought, but that was at some point I kind of stopped paying attention to what was going on in the movie, because for like 3 to 5 minutes I was just looking at her and I'm just like, this woman is so unlikable. She is responsible for her husband's death. She wasn't even a good wife, apparently, for what we know, because all she did was complain, even after she agreed to buy this farmhouse with the husband. Then she had buyer's remorse and blamed him for everything. She was just so unlikable. And I was just like, it got to the point that I was like, there is no way a woman wrote this movie. There's just not. I'm sorry. And I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that it was very obvious to me that this was written by a man, because no woman would write a lead, a female character, a female protagonist this way. I don't think so. I don't think any woman writer would write a female character this way. I mean, when I say she's unlikable, there's nothing about her to root for. There's nothing that makes us root for her as a character. There's nothing that makes us want to see her survive. I mean, I'm speaking for me. I just don't think she's likable. And then, of course, by the time we got to the end of the movie, I saw that I was right. And a man did write this movie. Sam Stefanak, I think his name was. And I'm not saying he's not a good writer. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it was obvious that he was a dude. I knew that, just because, I don't think a woman would have written a female character that, her husband died. She's unable to support her family. The house is falling apart. Bills are past due. The kids are barely able to keep food in the house, all because the man has left. There's no man present, so the family has fallen apart. Like, that's just how I took it. You know what I'm saying? And again, I'm not saying I knew it was written by a man. That's all I'm saying. And I will say, on the flip side, I've definitely seen movies in Hollywood where, it was obvious that a woman wrote it. I mean, come on, how many movies have I seen where the man is just an asshole? He's a piece of crap. He's a liar, a cheater. He's this, he's that. He's misogynistic. And then after a while, I'm like, okay, so a woman wrote this. And again, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying you can usually tell. And this was one of those instances where I could tell that, this female character was written by a man, also directed by a man. Do with that what you will. I'm just saying I could tell. I will say this flashback scene with the husband and the wife, it was pretty interesting, because when they leave the dinner scene, there's a really great shot that I loved. Shout out to the director. I think again, if I'm mispronouncing his name, I'm sorry, but Wame. Shout out to the director. They get in the car, and in the reflection of the passenger side door, you see in the reflection, there's a theater marquee, and it says The Mirror. It's a film called The Mirror Has Two Faces. I had never heard of that film before, but I pulled out my phone. I don't usually do it in movie theaters, but I pulled out my phone just to Google it. It's a movie that came out in 1958 called The Mirror Has Two Faces. It actually made me want to see that movie, and apparently that movie was remade in '96. But obviously, that was there for a reason. So okay, it's another sign that the woman in the yard and the mother, that they're basically one and the same, and that this mother has two faces. So I really loved that shot. It was my favorite shot in the movie. So again, I just want to say shout out to the director for that. That was a dope shot. So, we kind of get to the climax of the film, and again, if this is not a movie where if you're expecting a high body count or something like that, if that's what you go to horror movies for, this probably won't be the horror movie for you. I don't need that. I love supernatural horror movies. Most supernatural horror movies I feel like don't have a high body count. It's kind of more about the creepy, environment, making people feel very uncomfortable, and maybe some cheesy jump scares. I don't like the cheesy jump scares, but I will say also on a fear factor. On a fear factor. No shout out to the show. I didn't find the movie scary at all, but I hardly ever get scared in horror movies. There's only a few horror movies that really freaked me out. I know it sounds random. One of them was Jeepers Creepers. Hereditary was very unsettling, especially the last 20 minutes. This movie's not really unsettled. Well, let me take that back. It's not scary, but the subject matter that it gets into is very unsettling because towards the end of the movie, the kids are running. You kind of get a sense that this character can move through shadows, so you have to cut off all the lights. It's like the opposite of Lights Out, where if you cut off all the lights, you're in danger because that's where the creature lives. This woman she needs a shadow to be able to move. So usually if you're in the dark, you're safe, but if there's any kind of light or sunlight, she can move through the shadows and do that. I will say this is where the film gets kind of confusing because they all run to the attic. The woman is in the attic, and then somehow they've switched. Like where this woman lives in the shadows, she's kind of switched, and now she's in the real world, and the mother's in the shadows. And then the mother's kind of like in this dream world where the husband's back alive, and they go right back to the beginning of the movie where he says, "I had this beautiful dream." So, and the more they keep saying that I had this beautiful dream, I'm like wondering, is any of this real? Is this fake? But then you see she's in this mirror world because in the mirror, again, the mirror has two faces. In the mirror, everything is kind of like backwards. And then in this world she's in, everything is written backwards, and I was just kind of like, okay, so she's in this mirror realm. She's been switched out in this mirror realm where this woman in the yard lives, I guess. I don't know. Again, this is where I was my brain was on overload and I was not prepared to think this much. I was definitely thinking, but I will say I'll give the last 20 minutes of the film its due. It's at least kind of like it interested me, at least, where maybe I wasn't as interested before. And then the subject matter gets kind of heavy because, maybe they should have had a trigger warning again in the beginning because the subject matter deals with, obviously mental health. And then, people who want to unalive themselves. I'll say that. I don't want to say the word. I'll say unalive themselves. Because eventually, like the mother, well, I guess if she has any redeeming quality, she rescues her two kids, she keeps them safe. But we come to find out that her and this woman in the yard, because the woman in the yard goes, "You called for me. You ask every day for strength. What do you ask for strength for?" And basically, you find out that the mother is asking for strength to, take herself out of this world, which is very dark, So that I say all that to say that I guess that was unsettling because of the subject matter being so heavy. So the mother ends up telling her kids to go to the neighbors. It'll be fine. I'm going to stay here. So I guess if that's the one redeeming thing is that she at least saved her kids' lives. Then she goes back to the barn. She has the shotgun. You see a very dark internal struggle with this dark figure kind of forcing her to take this shotgun and point it at herself. I know. It's a really powerful scene, though. I will say the actress did a great job with that scene. It was really tense, really unsettling. So I want to give her credit for that. And then you don't see her commit the act. I guess it's like you're wondering if she did it or not because you don't hear a gunshot. You see her walking out of the barn, and you kind of get she's looking at her daughter's toys and thinking like, okay, no, I do have something to live for. I could live for my children. So you don't hear a gunshot. She comes out of the barn and her kids run up to her. But even then, you like, okay, she probably did it. She probably unalived herself because like all of a sudden things are too happy-go-lucky. All the kids go into the house. But you see that, some of the writings in this house are backwards. So she's in this mirror world again, which I don't know if this is an afterlife. I don't know. It's one of them things you got to kind of like come up with your own interpretation. And at this point in the night, like I said, it's just too much thinking for me. I did think I might go back and watch it again to see if I could catch something different. I will say the one thing that I was thinking about the most was was any of that real, or were they always in this mirror world? Because earlier in the film, like way back in the first like 10 minutes, the mother is yelling at the daughter. She says, "Why can't you draw your R's right? Every time you draw an R, it's backwards." So it's kind of one of those moments at the end where I was like, dang, she kept yelling at the daughter. And I thought, like, yo, chill out. So she can't get her R's right. Why are you so hard on her? You know, and that's when I started not to like the mother. But then you get to at the end and you like,
Oh, snap.
I did. I walked out with my wife and I was like, oh, shoot, wait, was any of this real? Or did she already kind of like unalive herself and she's trapped in this cycle where she repeats it over and over again? Because from the very beginning of the movie, you know, the daughter cannot write an R. She writes an R backwards, where, you know, if you look at something in the mirror, it's backwards. Yeah, I know. I don't know. That's just maybe none of it was real. Maybe she had already unalived herself and she's trapped in this, you know, this kind of like hellish purgatory where she's forced to relive those events over and over again because they keep going back to the beginning. Even the movie ends the same way it starts, with her hearing her husband's voice. I had this most beautiful dream. So yeah, that was the end of the movie. You kind of get a sense that at the end of it all, she unalived herself, and I don't really I don't really know how to take that. Like, even when I sat on it and I woke up the next day, I was like, yeah, like I don't know. Again, I hate to harp on it being written by a man, but like, just I don't, as an audience member, I'm kind of left walking away with, okay, so at the end of the day, I just sat through a movie that was about a woman who was an ungrateful wife. She was a bitter wife, just always unhappy. She accidentally, you know, killed her husband. You know, she's responsible for her husband's death and for her kids growing up without a father. After that happened, she falls into a deep depression. They even say it. The husband, the teenage son who calls her, you know, says, "You're mom, you're a," which is a crazy word to call your mom. He calls her that and says she's on crazy pills. So she's on antidepressants, you know, clearly dealing with mental health. She just completely breaks down after she got her husband, you know, killed. She can't take care of the house. There's barely any food in the house. And then at the end of it all, I guess you're thankful that she rescued her kids, maybe. Because at the end of the day, she apparently unalives herself. Like, after all of that, there's just nothing really redeeming about that. I don't really know what to do with that. But again, I know it's a real thing. Like, those things do happen. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm aware that those things happen. So it's very much real life. You know, I just, but just, you know, in a movie, it's just kind of interesting, you know, because this was as far as behind the scenes, a very male dominated movie written by a man, directed by a man, and they chose to have a female lead that honestly, by all accounts, is a pretty weak minded character. You know, throughout the whole film, they're unlikable, and then at the end, they apparently, you know, take themselves out of this world. That's just how I'm walking away from it on my first viewing. Let me know what you thought about the movie. If you've made it this far, like I said, drop a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's just my take on the movie. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad film. I'm not saying it's a great film. It certainly isn't 45%. Like, no, I would say at least 60, maybe even 65%. But again, not one of Blumhouse's best. But yeah, let me know what you thought about the film. What did you think about the character? Did you like her? Did you hate her? Do you feel I'm way off base? Want to hear your opinions. Again, we're talking about The Woman in the Yard. If you haven't seen it yet, go see it. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Appreciate y'all watching. We'll be back.